Welcome to Your Future in Sales and Marketing, a podcast that helps you make great career decisions to get the most out of your career journey. We'll introduce you to the AXR network of established senior leaders and a hand-picked group of future aspiring leaders who have it all in front of them. You'll learn what it's like in the top job and how to get there. Your hosts from AXR's specialist sales and marketing recruitment team will also land bonus episodes for you on how to work with recruiters, write a resume, and smash an interview, as well as our very popular market updates. It's the podcast that has it all. You can't get this career advice anywhere else.
Welcome to Your Future in Sales and Marketing. Great to be back with you again. My name is Ben Carnegie, Principal Consultant of Marketing at AXR. Today I'm joined by Florence Paoli, Marketing Director of Reckitt. A lot of the brands I'm sure you'd be very familiar with in keeping us all healthy and hygienic. And we'd love to welcome you on board today.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Great to have you here, Florence.
Thank you.
I thought just to get started, as a usual icebreaker, we'd love to hear about what your favourite brand is and not one that you've ever worked for.
Yeah, I think that's the tricky part of the question because naturally we all, direct towards one that we've worked and loved. But no, I was thinking my absolute favourite brand to date has been Lego. It's one of those that for me has really successfully navigated through the years, like found a way to stay very current and modern and always has those most amazing partnership with the latest movie and successfully extended to a new target audience. I think that their work is unbelievable. So one day I might work there.
Lego, they've got a really interesting interview process actually where everybody joining the business has to create their own design, no matter what sort of function you're in the business. So
that would be epic.
It'd be great to try and build something from scratch.
From scratch.
Without the plans. I don't know how I'd go with that.
I'm not sure. I was very good at, Harry Potter castle and all sort of like bonsais and stuff that they've been launching recently, but creating something from scratch, would be a different one.
Good. So look, obviously Australia's not originally home. So you started your career and life in France. What was life in France before your career started?
Yes, I wonder what might have made you think that I'm not a native Australian.
Just something gave it away.
Listen, I haven't, so I'm originally from France. I grew up in Lyon. I haven't lived back home for like 15 years now. But somehow the accent still sticked. Listen, a very sheltered and safe life growing up. So really, really lucky, sheltered from the outside world. So really, it was myself within my family and I wasn't too much aware, I guess, pre-mobile phone and stuff. It was, a much smaller world and we weren't allowed TV, for example. So I'm the worst trivia partner in the world because I've missed out on all of those, pop culture stuff. But it was very safe. We grew up with a really strong sense of respect and safety and trust and hard work. My parents were both working really hard. Money wasn't plenty, but it was just earned hard and spent well. So that's something that I really carried, and I still carry it in the way I manage my brand budget with my team on a daily basis. It's one of those core value, hard work and respect.
Absolutely. Well, you've already sort of talked about some of the earlier influences. Anything else that led you to a career in marketing from your upbringing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a mix of so my parents were in corporate jobs, so really hard working daily jobs, but at the same time with a very strong creative vibe. So my dad paints, my mom loves craft, so outside of work. So I always had this two sides, if you want, of like pragmatism and business centricity alongside loving creative. And to these days, there's nothing I love more than, reviewing a piece of pack or giving some feedback on comms. So it's really that balance in between a strong, like commercial corporate angle, which I thrive in alongside a bit of a creative flair.
Excellent. No problem. So as you began your career, tell us about where things started in your career and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I took a business and marketing degree back home. I fell in love straight away with marketing strategy, understanding the consumers, building a business, a commercial proposal. So loved it straight away, and did my last year as an apprenticeship. So, to pay for my study, I went to work as a product manager in a business that was doing a fruit puree for like very well-known pastry chefs. So it was the right balance in between a passion. I'm a big foodie, and so that food industry landed itself really well with my skills in marketing and wanting to grow brands.
Excellent. And from there, how did it develop from product management?
Well, a few years down the line, got married. We moved to London.
What inspired that move?
Well, to be really transparent with you, my husband was working in Luxembourg. Not husband at that time. My partner was working in Luxembourg. I was working in Paris. I didn't want to go and live in Luxembourg. We had to find an in-between. Exactly, common ground. And we thought that actually London was such a huge career opportunity that we got married and then we moved, both of us, to the UK. And that's where I started United Biscuit, which is Arnold's equivalent here.
Excellent. No problem. So continued that food category path in the UK, just moving from product into more of a brand marketing role.
Claim to fame, I got to do so I was working on biscuit assortments and I got to do the teens. I don't know if you it's probably now on your grandma's, tea corner, like those biscuit teens in aluminium.
They're keepsakes from a lot of these companies from back in the day.
Absolutely. And I got to do the William and Kate engagement one, which was epic in the UK, having to work with the royal family comms team to lock that picture and etc.
Did you get to meet them to get their likeness correct?
Of course not. Of course not. But it was still, it was really fun. So again, finding the right balance in between something that I was passionate about and something that from a work perspective was really interesting.
Okay. And so you spent some time working in the UK. From there, offering a number of positions I think you had in the UK there, and then later you moved to Dubai.
Yeah, so in the
real
UK,
citizen of the world.
Yeah. In the UK, United Biscuit, I stayed for a year. It was a maternity contract. So as soon as that was coming to an end, I started looking for something, and then ended up with a choice of staying with them or actually moving to Reckitt. And that's when I moved to Reckitt. Chose Reckitt with the vision of starting an international career, which is still one of the key opportunity that the business provides. And starting as a brand manager on Nurofen, and then did a few stints across brand. I think the beauty of the business is we've got plenty of different categories. So I got to work on Nurofen. I got to work on some of our personal care portfolio. I was SBM on Finish, which is one of our biggest brands, and then in between my two children, did a stint on Gaviscon, so the heartburn medicines. And so we stayed just under 10 years in the UK, which initially was meant to be 2 or 3, like everyone who moves to London. Ended up being just under 10, and moved to Dubai after that.
Indeed. What sort of valuable skills did you learn whilst you were living in the UK that you could then apply to your career later on?
Well, everything. First, from a language perspective, I still remember to this day my first call with a Scottish factory. I could not understand a word of what had been said in the first half hour up until I heard my name. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. I absolutely need to understand what's been said. So definitely from a cultural adaptability, and it's quite funny because France and the UK are next to each other, but still requires a lot of adjustments in terms of cultural adjustments. And that's where I started to get the taste for international mobility and getting to know new people and having to adjust my professional skills to the cultural context of that market, especially when you become a leader and you have obviously to take a whole team with you on the journey to what you want to achieve.
Exactly. I can completely relate to the Scottish accent working with Mike. I think I know what he's saying most of the time. Just best to talk to him when we're not out at the pub, because all of a sudden the accent gets a lot thicker.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. And so a lot of time in the UK, as I mentioned before, you moved to Dubai after that. How did you navigate the cultural transition from France to Dubai?
I'm not going to lie, that was an epic learning curve. I still remember arriving to Dubai with my husband, my 2 kids in the double pram. And the door of the hotel we were staying at opens up and it's like 40 degrees outside. And I'd never been there ever in my life before. Yeah, we decided to move. I'd never been to Dubai.
Hadn't set foot in the country, arrived and
just
started
arrived
working.
with my 2 kids, my husband, and 5 suitcases, literally. Yeah. And I remember that sensation of the huge heat that engulfs you. And I'm like, what have I done? After 10 years in the UK, I think that was really a shock.
Not a shock. Yeah.
So that's the funny side. But obviously adjusting to a country where you are the minority is probably one of the most challenging and the most meaningful step change not only in my career, but also in how I behave as a leader and how I lead my team, having to do an introspection of your values and really what's core to your proposition and how does that evolve or how does that apply in the new cultural context.
Absolutely. As you say, stepping into a new country completely from scratch, having never stepped foot in there, but also in a highly masculine society there as well.
Yeah.
How, as a female leader, did you face sort of specific challenges in that environment in Dubai?
I think the shock is probably the wrong word, but the cultural differences were twofold. The first one is really stepping into Dubai is a new world that grows at extreme speed, where there's everything new. Everyone is turned towards opportunity and growth and etc. So that was the first thing. On the other end, I was working on developing markets. Okay, so obviously being where Dubai is located, it's very easy reach of a lot of developing market countries. So I think I reached gold on Emirates in 3 months because with my global role, I traveled to India multiple times, to South Africa, to China. And I think that was the extent of the cultural shock of being in the Middle East, working day in, day out with culture that I hadn't been exposed to, being vastly dominated by people from India or from Pakistan, as well as on my day-to-day being confronted to the reality of developing markets. So, being sat on the floor of an Indian household in the slums, 4 stories high building, in their living room, there was one room. It was 4 of them. There was that one room and a toilet. And obviously I was working on Harpic, sanitation was a huge agenda, and you get to see firsthand the impact that you're having on those people. And this was by far, to this date, the most mind-opening experience that I've ever had. And I've had a few of those. South Africa was the same. China, we had the most crazy experience in China as well. It's the global role that opened me on developing market, that opened me to a whole set of new cultural differences. And the fact that in the Middle East, I became a minority, which I'd never experienced before. And so all of a sudden you have to understand how you influence via different means than what you've grown up with, because you are white, young female, and your credibility is challenged because of cultural predominance. So
you must feel a real pressure to perform 50% better than everybody else just to prove yourself.
Absolutely. Yes, it's intense. Points I was feeling really unsettled, not being able to default to your usual behaviors or go to, and I think what really opened my mind to diversity and inclusion and how meaningful it was when you are a minority to feel that you are being heard and you are being respected for who you are outside of your skin color or your sex or your sexual preference or etc. So I think it really opened my mind to developing skills also within my team that goes beyond their identity and that can stretch across cultures.
Absolutely. Did you feel you needed to adapt your leadership style when developing teams in the Middle East?
Big time. And for 2 reasons. The first thing is, in a global role, it was a lot more about influencing. It's less directly in your hands. So in the past, it's easy. You want something done, you just do it yourself, or, you do it with your team. Whereas when you are in a global position, then your job is about shaping a strategy and then influencing and convincing and etc. But ultimately, it's not directly in your hands. So developing that skills to this day is probably one of the skills that I'm the most grateful for having developed and make the huge difference into my career. And the second part is in the same way that I'm trying to raise children that are inclusive and etc. I also work with my team so that we've got principles in place and just a culture that respects that diversity.
Okay. So speaking of diversity there, what does diversity and inclusion mean to you? As a core value of your leadership?
Being a minority, that is probably, what opened my mind to what it meant and how, to your question earlier, when you ask about, did you have to try and perform like 50% better just because you were like, absolutely. And I think it made me realize the strain it's putting on someone that doesn't feel respected for who they are, who doesn't think that they're empowered to, bring their true self to work. It's something we say quite frequently, like, I want to enable everyone in my team, for example, or in the organization to bring their whole self to work. It's so that you don't have to disproportionately compensate for regional background or, or your ethnicity.
Absolutely. Is there a particular leader that influenced you throughout your career, whether around diversity and inclusion or in general, that has made a big impact on your career?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's actually during that time while I was in Dubai that I got to report to the best leader ever to this date. And it's someone that had done her own journey and really decided intentionally to sponsor a female and to help them discover bring their whole potential. And so really the notion of like investing into developing your team. Mm-hmm. She was also the first person that I encountered in the business that was leading from a place of authenticity and vulnerability, which was a game changer for me. That first time I realized that I didn't need to be someone else to be successful. I could lead from an authentic voice, and vulnerability empathy is actually a superpower. It's not something that you should try and hide.
Absolutely. And finishing off that conversation on diversity and inclusion there, it's such a big part of all employment situations now there. What do you do perhaps outside of work to help support that?
Not enough is the answer. I do a lot as part of work. Previously, I was leading some of our employee group in the business to drive the female equality and make the business a place where everyone can thrive, whether you carer or whether you have other obligation outside of work. So I do a lot as part of my job and as part of my team as well, and the culture that we create in my team, that I feel everyone to feel safe and they, like we discussed earlier, they can bring their whole self to work. I think it's probably the only way to unlock the true potential of people is if they feel appreciated for who they are and, they don't feel they need to pretend being someone else. Just very recently, I started working with the Women Community Shelter. It's one of the things I've been wanting to do for a long time, but, work and family life took over, so I hadn't had a chance to do it yet. I've just started, so I'm not going to claim I've done anything meaningful to date, but yeah, it's adding some meaningful elements to my daily life that is really important to me.
Absolutely. And look, daily life, it's work, it's home. How do you balance the demands of a senior corporate role whilst caring for your family, and particularly across multiple countries?
It's tough.
You must really enjoy a sleep in when you get one.
Listen, I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely intense. First is the little time I have with the family, I make it count. So the first thing is, I try to be really present and in the moment when I'm there. And it means no phone on the table. And it means that, whenever, yes, I'm going to hear a third time about what happened with, your girlfriend at, lunchtime. And yes, and you have to be there.
It's better the third time around.
Yes, because you add more details.
There's more details every time.
Yes. So that's the second thing is I've always been very clear on the non-negotiable. So it's easier to say than do, because it's easy for them to sleep. But there's one thing I've never allowed to sleep is I want to have dinner with my family. Obviously, you're going to tell me it's French. It's a stereotype. Like food is really important. But it's really it's that quality time where you get to hear the story and where we always eat together. We always have. And it's 1 hour during the whole day that I protect at any cost. And yes, if there's a burning urgency, I will sacrifice it, but it comes at a cost. So I really dislike doing it. But more so than that, the way I'm trying, I'm not entirely there, but the way I'm trying to look at it is not really a balance in between work and life, because I think that implies that one is at the detriment of the other, which I don't think it's entirely the case. So what I'm trying to do is add more fulfilling, rewarding element into my work life so that it also fuels my personal life. And this morning is an amazing example. So doing this podcast is completely outside of my comfort zone.
You never know.
I might love it, and then I'm going to become a serial
professional speaker.
Yes,
get you on
exactly.
the circuit.
But then I talked through it with my kids. I was like, you role model what you're telling them to do every day. You tell them every day to take risk and try stuff they've never done before and Doing this, for example, not only adds to me as a excitable, something I've never done before and really getting out of my comfort zone, but it's also a great family discussion. And this morning when I left, they told me, good luck, mommy, you're going to be great, displaying the behavior that you do on a daily basis.
That's
exactly.
Right.
So yeah, trying to see them. And again, of course, my kids now, 9 and 11, I'm not changing nappies anymore. I think it's very different when the kids are younger. Like, I'm no longer in that position. Now they are starting to be a bit independent. I can now, have those type of conversation. And so I don't feel the pull in between the two just as much. I'm trying to have them.
Absolutely. And having kids that age really hones your negotiation skills. You can use it in the boardroom anytime.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh my God. They're better at negotiating than even our sales team. They're brutal.
One more hour on the screen?
Oh, don't talk to me about screens. It's
I know.
Daily nightmare.
A whole different can of worms we don't want to open. But speaking of the kids, your kids have lived across 3 continents, and as you say, 9 and 11 now. How has that experience living across so many places with the kids influenced your life?
It's funny because I think the other day I was telling them that at their age, I didn't have a passport yet. And yes, okay, it's a few decades ago, fair. And they were shocked because they had their first passport like a month old. Yeah, we were living abroad. So, as soon as we had to go back and see family, we needed a passport. So I think, they don't realize how incredibly first lucky they are, but also how different it is versus the life that we've had. What I find quite interesting is that they have a much more positive approach to change than most adults.
Dealt with it from birth almost.
Absolutely. And this agility, I think, is going to be invaluable. So, and they're still very shy and introverted. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it comes easy, but they are so much more flexible and agile and open to change than even us. Yeah, when we came here, they were like, we were more worried than they were. You know what I mean? Like, they were like, new school, like, we were worried about new school, blah, blah, setup. And they were like, yeah, new school, new friends, happy days.
That's right.
So
new friends, you like blue? I like blue.
Yeah,
we're best friends.
Absolutely. So that's been epic. The other thing I'm really proud, it takes a lot of effort, but also about raising inclusive children. And I think if everyone was doing a bit more of that when the kids are young, this world could look really differently. I'll give you an example. When we arrived here, we did to baptize our daughter. We went to meet with the local priest that asked my daughter her favorite celebration. Now, bear in mind, we were just coming from Dubai, right? We were a few months in Australia. My lovely daughter goes to respond that her favorite celebration is Diwali.
I was wondering if you were going to say Halloween for a second there.
No. And listen, the priest's face dropped, which was probably the funniest part. But yes, of course, I understand that Australian priest in eastern suburbs is probably not used to hearing Diwali as the first celebration that most kids speak about or enjoy.
But I don't even know about it.
Probably. But my daughter was just coming from 3 years in Dubai. And for us, like, we enjoyed Diwali same as we enjoyed Ramadan celebration and the same as we enjoyed, Christmas or Halloween in your example. Yeah. And I think that's what fills me with the most pride. It's really, raising kids that are open to differences and approaching differences with a really positive lens. And I think that's going to be invaluable for life and the world going forward.
Absolutely. It sounds like you really immersed yourself in the culture of the different places that you've lived and enjoying in the local celebrations.
Yeah.
And I think that's all part of living in different places and enjoying what that country can offer you.
And that's key, right? Because I think when we move to a new country, it gets really unsettling, right? We moved to Dubai, we knew no one. So you stay in your cocoon and you find people from your own country, and you just find them and stick with them, or you try to discover. And I think that's what we did a bit more, a bit with the Middle Eastern culture, and then a lot with the Indian and Pakistani culture, which are huge in the Middle East.
Excellent. Well, it's been great to listen to a bit about your life and the challenges you've faced living in different countries. I'd like to turn the conversation towards your career. Obviously, marketing director of Reckitt, big job. Talk about the scope and scale of your current role.
Yeah. So yes, Reckitt is the home of some of the most superb FMCG brands in the country, like some of the most trusted and well-known. So the like of Dettol, Durex, Nurofen, Finish. Like, we've got an array of outstanding brands. I've been with the business for like 13 years now. So really have come close to a lot of those brands. And that's why when you asked earlier which one is my favorite, my brain definitely goes to one of the first brands that I worked on. But it's been epic. We've always wanted to come and live in Australia. So I think that was a dream come true. I was initially in charge of the hygiene part of the portfolio. And last year, we transformed the business and regrouped the two business units. And I became in charge of both the hygiene and the health portfolio coming together. So adding a few more brands to the scope.
Absolutely. So considering that your portfolio increased significantly during that, what are your key insights on brand building and maintaining customer centricity in a global FMCG business?
The first place I would start is by having a very clear vision of what the brand is there to do and what are the barrier or challenges that brand is here to address. Yeah, what's the brand proposition and what's critical. The second one is probably on consistency. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've just completed a huge transformation. We brought two teams together. As you can imagine, it's like bringing two different businesses together. So creating consistency, whether it's from a brand perspective or whether it's from an operating model and processes, really makes a difference. And the third piece is consumer centricity. You're gonna hear that as one of my key mantra. The closer you are to your consumers, the more you understand who they are, what they're looking for, what are their habits, why are they not shopping your brand, etc. is key to then building a strategy that sustains growth for the future.
Absolutely. And speaking of strategy, how in a global business where decisions are made anywhere but here, how do you influence that strategy locally?
We always refer to think global, act local as a phrase, which is really about know your consumers inside out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so be the best representative of what your local consumer needs, so that you can help shape the implementation of the global strategy here locally. So first thing is data. Yeah. So the more you have consumer insight, the more you can back up your insights with actual data from your country, the best. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is building meaningful relationship with your global counterparts. So they have their agenda, they have their strategy and etc. You need to have built the relationship before you go and ask for a favor. Yeah. Or before you go and ask for local exception and etc. And I think it's really key to work hand in hand with those global partners, align the main chunk of the strategy needs to be consistent. You need to be everyone pushing in the same direction, and then have enough of your local insight just to adapt their thinking to what you need locally.
Absolutely. Data first every time is certainly what I'm hearing from that there, and
Yes.
and don't ask for favors too early.
Yeah, it's definitely about building a good enough connection that both wins. Yeah, I think if you approach it from the point of like, global wants me to do something, and because it's global, I don't really want to, and I want to do my own thing on the side. Of course. And listen, we've been winning at speed on doing sometimes exactly that. But the reality is there is a common ground. There is a common vision that needs to be, and we spoke about consistency earlier. This is exactly that. There is a common ground that everyone needs to follow. And then it's about your responsibility in market to make it right and to win in your context. And I think that's what I've been really enjoying in this new, obviously increased portfolio, but also like revisited up model. It's finding that right balance in between being part of a large organization when you have some of the most beautiful media budget in the country, working on brands that have hundreds of years of existence and have some of the most beautiful equity in the country, and at the same time having enough traction locally to make it right for the consumers here and for what the Australians want.
Absolutely. So you can see in FMCG across a lot of businesses at the moment there where technical and digital capability is increasing within the marketing teams there. Now, I've heard that Reckitt has created their own closed source AI platform. Could you tell us a bit about why that decision was made?
Yeah, epic. I'm fascinated by AI.
It's really exciting to hear something like that.
I'm fascinated by the potential that AI can bring and all the opportunities that come with it. So yes, you're right. Reckitt develop their own like proprietary AI tools, which I think is quite unique in the industry. And I think it brings two benefits. The first one is obviously mining the extensive data that we have available across the business, whether they're sales data, whether they're insights from years of research and consumer understanding and etc. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is the protection of that data. So I'm sure like every other business, we navigated initially, everyone going on ChatGPT and loading their internal document and, with the risk that becomes available to the internet as large, right?
You pop it on ChatGPT and it's available to everybody.
Exactly.
If you search hard enough.
Yeah. So that's the key. One of the key benefits is that the protection of the data. Obviously, the other benefit is that it's entirely tailored to the needs of our. We started with marketing, so I'm very grateful.
Someone had to be the guinea pig.
Yes, and we lent in. First, because I'm passionate. Second, because I talked to my team, and I think everyone. That's why what tells you that I've got an amazing team. It's like everyone wanted to lean in, wanted to learn, wanted to discover, and that's where you see the cultural benefit of being like open-minded and agile and etc. Is when those new technology arises. It's either you against the change and you try every excuse because it didn't work straight away. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, AI learns, but it's learns.
Got to be taught.
Yeah, exactly. And you learn alongside it. So you have to be open-minded enough to navigate those moments where it doesn't quite work, and you have to continue build it. So yeah, it's been a superb journey, and it's just the beginning. Yeah. So now we have tools to monitor brand performance, to monitor media optimization, to do some artwork creation and etc. So at this point in time, very marketing centric, but the business has a plan for rolling out AI solutions through more or less every function. And I think what was critical was when we approached AI, it was really tools to empower people to spend their time in meaningful task. Okay. It was really about freeing up time from those tasks that had very little value.
Like time efficiency.
Yeah. That are very repetitive, that, just don't add much value. So try and shift that away so that the team could spend time on what they like doing the most, so what they're best at as well. Yeah. So with that approach, I think the team was really supportive and we're using it daily now. So from a point in time where the first use of AI was someone that went to create a meme on, with the face of one of the leader in the business, to now using it every day for very, very meaningful things.
Absolutely. It's moved away from the novelty side of AI use to professional use. And obviously you're seeing a lot of benefits having introduced that already.
Yep.
Are there any challenges that you've encountered using a platform that's been built from scratch?
Yes. My IT&D director probably would want me to say, no, it wasn't perfect from day one. Never is. The system keeps on learning. Like I mentioned, we're learning too. So yes, sometimes the data is a bit more complex. So you're having limitation with the system. But ultimately, it's if you embrace the potential of the possibilities, if that makes sense, you see how valuable those tools are. And for me, it was really, it was never if, it was always like when and how. If you don't jump on board now, the question is, when will you catch up? Yeah. And so we've jumped on first and we're now really leading the pack, having integrated it into the op model. So that's the other thing, is that if it remains a tool on the side that people aren't really clear when they're meant to be using it, it doesn't have a meaningful impact. As soon as you integrate it into the brand planning process, as soon as you integrate it into the monthly reporting process, then people start using it on a daily basis. And that's where you see the most benefit. But yeah, people are definitely the gatekeeper. So it is about mindset. It is about open-mindedness, to try, to learn, and to stick with it, even if it doesn't work straight away. Like most
anything,
things. Yeah, exactly.
Practice makes perfect. So looking back at your career, is there anything you do differently given a second chance?
I'm not sure. I'm sure there's plenty of things I could have optimized, but no, I think probably the one thing I would be a bit more intentional about is knowing what you want and driving towards it in a bit more intentionally, because no one does it for you. And I think that's probably the realization some people have already clocked. Some of our interns in the business are absolutely fantastic, and I probably clocked quite later on. But yeah, you are the driver of your career. Only you know exactly what you want, and being a bit more intentional about that would have probably made my life a bit easier. But not that I necessarily regret anything. The other thing is, again, being a bit more intentional at creating a network of support. So I think when I was younger, I was under the impression that it was about going and randomly bumping into the boss at the coffee machine. It's not that. It's really being intentional with creating a network of peers, of sponsors and mentors that you can go to when you've got a challenge, someone that you can open your mind to new opportunities that you haven't quite captured. And it's all that I came to do a better job at more later in my career, that I think is actually extremely valuable. And creating that support network. And of course, in the context of an international career, it's even more complicated, because the regional structure that you got to learn and that got to know you obviously is not necessarily available anymore once you've moved region, once you move country, and etc. So how do you make it quite resilient to international mobility, and how do you recreate that at speed when you move around?
Indeed. So you've already sort of moved into some advice perhaps that you would suggest that aspiring senior marketing leaders could take as part of their development there. What else would you recommend to people?
The first thing, I guess, that helped me and that I find the most valuable is be humble. Be humble and learn from anyone. When I was younger in my career, I thought that maybe some of the people with the largest egos and, that were the loudest in the room were, doing a better job. And I think I very quickly realized that actually being humble and being able to say I've made a mistake and being open to feedback and being open to learning from anyone is actually the most valuable skill than pretending all the time that you're the best. So be humble and learn is definitely something that I'm trying to implement, because it's not just from a young, early career perspective. It's definitely also from a daily practice of yes, confidence. And I think that's a concept that I grasped when I was younger. Is I wasn't clear on the difference in between strong and confident, but still humble and open to admitting when you've done a mistake, which I think is actually the trait of some of the best leaders that I've been exposed to. The second one would probably be be clear on your values. There is one thing to adapt to the culture of a new environment, but there is another thing to be really clear with who you are and the values that you're not ready to sacrifice. And that helps you navigate some of the biggest decisions. When before Australia came on the table, there was another country that had been proposed, and that was something that wasn't aligning with our values. Saying no to that role was one of the easiest decisions of my career, because I was very clear on my values. And I think that's probably something that you develop with maturity as well, but that's something that makes a big difference.
Okay. So obviously, having reached the level that you're at the moment, you've had a number of promotions to get there along the way. How did you evaluate when it's time to stay in a role and when it's time to grow in a new opportunity?
Interestingly, I've always chosen a role for the content and not for the title. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also something I encourage the younger team members that I mentor as well, is don't be afraid to go out of your comfort zone and give the priority to learning, to getting exposed to something you've never done before, rather than chasing a title that might not actually deliver on what you want. So yes, a combination of get out of your comfort zone, learn, be exposed to taking risk makes a big difference.
Excellent. Looking at the market as it is, what trends do you think marketing professionals should be paying attention to at the moment?
Well, we've already mentioned AI. I think that would come as an obvious one, but beyond AI, it's more so stay on top of the technological advancement and make sure that you are proficient with a lot of those tools, because they are about efficiencies. They are about freeing up time for you to do your best work. So that would be the first one. And the second one, we mentioned consumer centricity upfront. Your marketing strategy is only as good as your understanding of your consumers. If you are very clear on what are their challenges, what's the role for your brand or for your business in addressing that tension, I think the better and the more long-term will be your growth ambition.
Fantastic. Certainly some words of wisdom there from Florence Paoli. Really appreciate you coming to join me on the pod today. It's been a great conversation and I've certainly enjoyed it. I hope you have too.
Thank you so much, Ben.
No problems. So that brings this pod to a close. Your Future in Sales and Marketing will be back again with more episodes. Don't forget to jump on our website at some point to make sure that you subscribe so that you get alerts for when these podcasts come out there, as well as getting access to our monthly newsletter for the Sales and Marketing Collective for all of the movements that we have within the FMCG community. And of course, the 2026 salary guide has been released. If you haven't seen it already, download that. It's a great tool for you to use to develop your path to your future career. So thank you again, Florence.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more career insights and advice from Australia's inspiring sales and marketing leaders. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.